Hello, I'm Jacob and you're watching the Prepper's Bunker Outdoors. I'm starting a new YouTube series about the Boog. Actually, the Boogaloo, Revolutionary War #2, Civil War #2. These things are concepts which this channel has always been based on. So my last video was Civil War #2, Why You Will Lose. The purpose of the title of this video was to get people's attention, but also to see how people reacted. Because if you watched this video and watched it and responded in anger or frustration or a desire to give up, you have proven the point for which the video was made. A lot of people brought up Mark John and other sources who have said that we will win because they are an analyst. And if your motivation or optimism for the upcoming struggles comes from a person on YouTube who says what you want to hear, you're in a bad spot. Today we're here to talk about history. Now, in the previous video I mentioned that I am a combat infantryman, served 4.5 years, did a deployment to Logar Province, Afghanistan, earned my CIB, received and returned small arms fire, plenty of mortars, rockets, all kinds of stuff. And I also did COIST, which was an intelligence job that connected my fellow infantry soldiers to the S2 intelligence shop directly, allowed me to see what was actually going on, do some top secret stuff, and made sure that information was passing up and down the communication channels properly to effectively carry out our mission. I didn't mention that when I got out of the military, I went to college for criminal justice, homeland security, got my 4-year degree, a bachelor degree at Argosy University, where I learned how to integrate different law enforcement bodies together effectively, how to communicate between law enforcement bodies, and how to deal with terrorist attacks, and how to watch for terrorist activity. For the most part, and how to counter that. Now, there are certainly some excellent, good-paying jobs that my career path and experiences could have led to. Instead, they led me here. This channel was started, although I thought that I was going to be helping people with tactics, combat tactics that are applicable to small unit movements, which is something I've got into a little bit and will continue to get into. This channel became more about survival. So after this education, this experience that I had, instead of getting a good paying job and helping people on YouTube with firearms advice like I thought I was going to, and I am a certified firearms instructor, I started getting more training at Tactical Response and with Defense Technologies International, DTI, and John Farnham, and seeking out more information, as well as doing a lot of survival training. I was on the boot camp for season 2 of Alone on the History Channel, and really intimately understanding through experience the lack of survival skills that I personally had. And so what was an interesting transition for me was going from seeing how I felt about survival before a few suckfest trips with no food and after. And that's how we are going to start talking about history and the difference between hearing history, knowing history, and understanding history, and how it's going to affect any possible future engagements. So the difference between seeing, knowing, and understanding: seeing can be and will be done by any of us. Even just through Facebook and social media. We know that we went to war in Vietnam and ultimately were unsuccessful. We know that we are in a doggone 20-year war in Afghanistan, and as far as the average person understands, we are not successful. We understand the Revolutionary War, and people don't understand the Civil War, and for the purpose of this discussion, probably don't want to understand the Civil War. However, we know these things happened, and I am big on history myself. I mean, extra history classes. I go to history club meetings and give presentations. I love history. So hearing about history and knowing about history, the next step might be a history professor, okay? And so this is where you actually start reading. You start buying your own books. You start doing scholarly research. You start searching for history that was written in real time or as close to it as possible to get away from the standardized and watered down history that we have today, the overgeneralized crap. And I'm constantly frustrated with our education system for multiple reasons, but especially when it comes to history, when I know people who got all A's in history classes in high school and don't know the absolute fundamentals of any conflict, U.S. history, or really much of anything. The final step, understanding history, must come with experience. You have to understand, like when Stonewall Jackson is marching his soldiers without shoes for hundreds of miles just to freaking confuse the enemy, when people, what it means to go without food, to have to be self-sufficient. You see, our soldiers today and for a very long time have been completely reliant on modernization and industrialization and logistical support. The control of logistics is the control of the war. And that's why in Afghanistan, when Russia was fighting Afghanistan, we supplied the rebels with money, food, weapons, and training. And when we were in Vietnam, the Chinese were supplying the Viet Cong with everything as well. And here's where we run into problems. Not only does this conservative movement in America not have any logistical supply chain, monetary support, cohesion even, we can't even agree on what the Second Amendment means. Not only do we not have that, but we live in a day and age in America where the average patriot is 100% dependent on the government and on the system. You see, for a revolt to be successful, the patriots who are revolting have to be either healthfully, monetarily backed and given logistical support, or they have to be ungovernable. The purpose of this nation was for us to be ungovernable and to hold government accountable for doing its job and not allowing it to overreach. We have done the opposite. The government has given us subsidies. It has, through corruption, created this system where without electricity and power, social media, or alcohol, people will just die. The average person, by a vast majority watching this video, has not slept more than 100 nights outside of their own bed, has never been hungry for more than 2 days, talks about going and being a patriot, and maybe has an AR, but has all kinds of Chinese knockoff bull crap all over the AR, has no kit to carry their mags, has no professional training, has no survival training, has no combat training, and has a fantasy about going out and being a badass. This person is not just a liability. They will ultimately, potentially become the enemy. because all of that boisterous moral belief, if you've never been hungry before, after 2 or 3 days, starts becoming a problem. Which is why our most elite special forces groups, in their training and requirements, have to go through so much physical labor without sleep or food, because it shows who you really are. And I promise you, who you are, no matter who is watching this, is a lot weaker than who you think you are. To wrap this up, people are giving me quotes from John Adams, etc. I could have lived a very normal lifestyle, and instead I work heating my house with wood. I live below my means. I work my hardest to run a private business, to fully pull out of society to every degree that I can, and to train and to give out this message. So while I might not have the audio, video, or editing quality that the average retard wants, the message that I am going out of my way and putting myself into harm's way to put out is very valid. And it's so sad to me to see the sheep hold on to a message based on its audio clarity and visual appeal. But that is what sheep will do. Sheep will be sheep. Don't be a sheep. Don't be discouraged by a message that is telling you that we are not ready and that there's going to be more to this fight than just taking out your Anderson AR, which I don't care if it's great. I shoot cheap ARs too, but it's going to be more than taking your Anderson AR with your NC Star scope and a mag in your pocket and a bunch of loud words. It's going to take more than that to win this fight. And not only that, the person that fantasizes that as what this fight will be, they aren't going to leave their jobs. They're fighting to keep the lights on in their house, and they will not revolt so long as the beer and the football continues. That's what I got for you guys. That is the difference between seeing history, knowing history, and understanding history. We as Americans are not the men that our forefathers should be, but if you're watching this message and you are feeling distraught, that is a good thing. Go get training. Go to Randall's Adventure Training. Go to Tactical Response. Go to DTI. Go train with Clint Smith. Become a professional, because I promise you from experience right now, every single thing that you fantasize about doing is a lot harder and a lot less enjoyable than you think. Let me know what you think in the comment section. I know you will, even if you only watched 30 seconds of this video. Hopefully it will help somebody. I'm going to go more into depth on a lot of different subjects, and we'll also make a checklist on what you need to prepare for the Boog. Have a blessed day, and I will talk to you soon.